our guest, Mr. John Pagano. You are the Group Chief Executive Officer of Red Sea Global, and you bring also a 4,000-year career. I think we're just going to say 4,000-year careers, so we don't dob anyone in with their ages.
I'm not as old as Jerry, just saying for the record.
Okay, so 5,000 years, 4,000 years, roughly in the multiple thousand-year careers. We love it. But you've obviously got a wealth of international experience as well, all facets of commercial property. You've worked across Europe, North America, the Caribbean, which I want to talk to you about later because I lived there for a while and I've got a soft spot as well for that part of the world. Right. And your experience really does look at every aspect of the real estate value chain, and now you're applying all of that expertise to these incredible development projects for Red Sea Global, which is really about creating a series of regenerative luxury tourism destinations in Saudi Arabia. Did I get that right?
I think you got it all. Well done.
Amazing. I think that deserves a round of applause. So let's welcome
so
John formally onto stage. Give him a big round of applause. Fantastic. Amazing. So we are talking about regenerative tourism and how those developments are different. And from talking with your team and hearing a bit more and studying and researching a bit more about Red Sea Global and some of the projects that you're doing, it's definitely a different approach to development. And I'm fascinated for us to dig in a little bit more and hear about all of that. So, a lot of people will know you, will know some of these projects, will have very familiar names attached to them. But can you really just explain to us a bit about what you mean? What is regenerative tourism development? What does that look like in practice? Why is it different from just standard development? So tell us a bit more.
Okay, well look, I think you have to sort of set the scene as to why regenerative development and so on. And I think you have to think about it in terms of the world, the planet is facing an existential threat from climate change, from loss of biodiversity, etc. And so people often talk about sustainability. I think now it's an overused term. Everybody wants to be sustainable. But when we reflected on what sustainability actually means, it means maintaining the status quo. And again, if you go back to my opening comment, the world is facing an existential threat. And so what we need to do, and what regeneration is all about, and frankly, it's a term we've coined many years ago, it's actually to try to improve the destination and make it better. And making it better addresses some of the challenges that the planet is facing, from, as I said, from climate change, from greenhouse gas emissions to loss of biodiversity. And that's what we focus on. And we're very proud of the work that we've been doing in that regard, because we want to set ourselves up as a beacon of hope and demonstrate to the world that there's a better way to develop.
Okay.
And that's the essence of what regenerative development is all about.
Well, let's tell everybody about this better way to develop. Maybe you want to just give us a glimpse into how practically you are using those regenerative tourism development principles to create some extraordinary destinations. Do you want to just give us a little bit of insight?
Yeah, so as I said, look, it starts by recognizing something that we have that I think is very unique. It's one of the last places in the world that is truly pristine, untouched, and we're the beneficiaries of the lessons that we've learned over time. We've, as humanity, have exploited our natural environment to a far too great an extent, and here we were presented with this beautiful environment, never been developed on before. We've got the most thriving coral reefs to be found anywhere in the world, on the 4th largest barrier reef system. And we've said, if we follow the standard business as usual case, we're just going to damage what we have. And so the approach that we took right from the very beginning was actually to take an inspired by nature approach, but led by science. And what does that mean? It means that before we started digging and constructing, we actually spent a good deal of time understanding the environment that we had. We did a lot of baseline surveys to understand the ecosystems that we were operating within. And then we said, okay, how do we regenerate? How do we make it better? So we undertook what we termed a marine spatial planning simulation. We actually had published a scientific paper on the subject, which was the largest of its kind ever undertaken. And what that did was it identified the conservation value of the entire destination. And then we said, let's set ourselves the goal of not maintaining it, but actually improving it. So we set a target of 30% increase in the net conservation value of the destination over the coming decades, compared with leaving the destination untouched. So that's a pretty, tall order for us to actually live by. And then we started the master plan. And through that course, we made choices that were driven by ecology and biodiversity, making sure that we protected critical habitats. You see us wear, the Red Seers wear a pin of the turtle. And the turtle for us is a constant reminder of the importance of the creatures that lived and inhabited this space before we did.
Yeah.
So that's what we mean, and so how does it manifest itself? We have developed in certain locations and not others. So we're only going to develop 22 out of a 90 island archipelago, leaving 75% of the islands untouched. We're going to limit the number of visitors to the destination by design. And by that I mean we're not going to overdevelop. So, and that's all to work within our so-called ecological ceiling. We don't want to stress this precious environment so that future generations can enjoy it. If we don't take these steps, coral reefs are going to disappear. The habitats, the hawksbill sea turtle, which is beautiful but is also critically endangered, will also disappear.
Yeah.
And so it's taking these very important decisions, but led by nature above all else, and putting profit almost in the back burner. We want to be profitable, and I think that's important because in order to be sustainable, you need to be. But you don't have to be profitable at the expense of the very thing that actually differentiates you and makes you so very special.
I mean, I think that's a really important kind of conversation to have, because we do all talk about sustainability. We do have all of these targets, all of these goals. It's got to be woven into the fabric of all of our developments and everything we're doing. But it can be an incredibly fine line to balance, as you said, kind of commercial success. And you're obviously not developing for mass commercial, markets, but you're still, you have to make something that's commercially viable. But often I think we have this impression that maybe sustainable solutions are more costly, are more complicated. So how do you walk that line within your development? It's hard, isn't it?
No, it is extremely difficult, and the path that we're taking is clearly more expensive. But I think you have to look at the consumer and consumers' habits are changing. Consumers want to travel more responsibly.
Yeah.
And there's a far greater awareness of our environment than had been the case certainly before COVID. It's just everybody is aware of it, and survey after survey is telling us that consumers A, want to travel sustainably, B, and this really speaks to the commercial point, are prepared to pay more. And so we're leveraging that aspect of it. And as I said, I think for us, we're in a very unique position where we're not short-term focused. We're very much a long-term play. It's about delivering on Vision 2030, so we can take the decisions that maybe others cannot. And what we hope to achieve by doing that is actually changing the paradigm and leading by example. I'm a big advocate of our actions need to speak louder than our words. It's easy to say stuff. It's much harder to do it. And we're doing it on the ground today. We made promises 5-6 years ago that are now coming to realization. And what I believe and I hope is that's going to put pressure on others to follow this lead, because when consumers have a choice where they spend their money, and they have a choice like the Red Sea and Amala, then that will put pressure on others. And if that's the outcome of all of this, that's going to be fantastic, because it's the step in the right direction towards starting to address some of the challenges that we face.
Yeah, and I think it's finding those sort of practical, tangible methodologies or ideas or tools that we can use that enable us to maybe have a future focus and vision and not be a bit head in the sand about it and just think that it's someone else's problem. And I love that one of your tools is that future focus. How does it apply in the long term? It doesn't have to just be short-termist. And I think we heard that from Jerry and Jane as well, this idea about what are we building for the long term, for the good of people and planet. But people sustainability is an interesting thing, isn't it? And I know that's a big part of the promises that you've made. It's not just about environmental sustainability, it's about people too, isn't it?
Without a doubt. So ESG is a big, again, another one of those very fashionable things to be focused on. Again, we want to bring that to reality, and so environmental for sure, we major on that, but we also major on social, and we've worked with our local communities to empower them, to allow them to benefit from the fruits of what we're creating. So I'm very proud of the fact that our neighboring communities are seeing economic growth. And I have a story of a young man that I met on one of our project sites who came to introduce himself as, and this really speaks to the reach of Vision 2030 and what it's all about. It's ultimately about creating a vibrant society and employment opportunities. So I met this young man. Actually, he wasn't that young. He was more middle-aged.
But not a 4,000-year career, right?
But not a 4,000-year career. But somebody who introduced himself as, I'm one of your small contractors that's now a big contractor. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Where are you working, et cetera. And he was telling me the project he was working on, and it was great that a local from Umluj, which is a neighboring town, had seen his business grow as a result of the work that we were doing. But here's the more interesting thing. And he said, and I have 2 sons, both of whom are in your scholarship program studying international hospitality management at the University of Prince Megrin. So not only have we affected his family and his elders and his children, but his children, their future is also impacted by what we're doing. So we're spending an inordinate amount of effort on training and upskilling young Saudis to benefit from the opportunities that Vision 2030 is creating. And it's not just at the higher education level. We're focusing on all jobs across the entire spectrum, and tourism is a very, cross-industry type of sector, simply because it's not just hotels. You have to travel, you have to fly. There's airports, there's engineering, et cetera. And so we have a vocational program that we're working closely with the Human Resources Development Fund, who fund these programs. And we hire these people. We graduated our first 480 students in the summer, and all 480 students have found jobs at the Red Sea across our hospitality partners, from the airport to the engineering services to renewable energy. So again, it's working. And we're ultimately, between Red Sea and Amala alone, we're going to create 120,000 jobs. 60,000 direct, another 60,000 induced and indirect jobs.
So you really are walking the talk when it comes to the people, sustainability, putting that program in place. Yes, I think, I heard that you'd graduated more than 700 students in your programs already.
Yes, indeed.
And then that they're also getting jobs within your projects, which is simply extraordinary to have that sort of legacy focus.
And absolutely, and these are career, life-changing opportunities that we're creating. I mean, I neglected to mention that within Red Sea, we today are over 5,000 staff, but we have an elite graduate training program where we hire the brightest Saudi graduates, and these graduates come from, have studied obviously here in the great Saudi universities, but also in some of the best universities around the world. And the last intake, which was, I think, 70 students, which are going to, actually we have a ceremony in a couple of weeks, we had something like 60,000 applications for 70 places. So, but what I'm trying to do with the legacy is to give them the opportunity to learn delivering some of these giga projects, and that will serve them for the rest of their careers, because they're going to grow within the organization, ultimately inherit the organization. As I think it was mentioned in the previous panel, we're just keeping the seat warm. At some points, one of these bright young minds is going to take over this business and take it forward, and that's something we're very much lined up with.
Absolutely. I think it's an overused expression, but I love the idea that we plant the seeds for the trees that we will never sit under ourselves. And it sounds very much like that's what you're doing. You're saying it doesn't matter if we don't benefit. It doesn't matter if our generation, our current level doesn't see the result of this, because it's also about having this eye on the future way beyond 2030.
No, without doubt, we're helping to transform a nation, and this is the most exciting time and the most exciting place in the world to be. It's just I can't think of anything before or after that will ever match what we're experiencing here today in Saudi Arabia.
No. So talk to me about measuring success, because it's obviously important, but sometimes difficult to measure success when the success we're building for maybe doesn't come to fruition for a number of years or even decades. So how do you sort of keep that short-term focus but the long-term ambition in balance?
Well, look, I think measuring success is we deal with a very cynical world, and people don't believe that again, as I said, talk is cheap, actions speak much louder than that. So I think we start with the principle of data is very important. We start with our baseline surveys, and we documented exactly the starting point of everything that we inherited. But more important than that, we publish it. So we share that with the world, and then on an annual basis, we report against our progress towards the lofty goals that we've set from increasing conservation value, et cetera, et cetera. I made a pledge 6 years ago when I first took on this role that we were going to create the biggest destination in the world that's powered by renewable energy. Today, that has come to fruition. We have built the biggest tourism destination powered by renewable energy. We've installed 760,000 solar panels to power the destination. We are completely off-grid, meaning we don't connect to the national grid at all. We have the largest battery storage system in the world to date at 1.2 gigawatt hours. So again, that's how we measure success. We've opened our first 2 resorts. We've opened the Southern Dunes, Six Senses at Southern Dunes, which is our desert resort. We've opened the St. Regis Red Sea, which is an island resort. Next month, we're going to open the Ritz-Carlton Reserve. We've opened an international airport that's now taking 5 flights a week, and that will grow as we open up more destinations. We have roughly, between Red Sea and Amalfi, 40,000 construction workers working today. And we built new towns. I mean, we have to build the place for people to live, to come to the destination and support us. Yeah. But we built resort destinations for our staff. We want to give our staff a quality of life so that they'll want to be part of the Red Sea vision. And so that's how we measure success.
Yeah, so
Actions
again,
rather than words.
Yeah, absolutely, and community first, and this sort of focus on Saudi pride, and having these really big, audacious goals and ambitions that, I mean, I'm hearing that you also hold yourself accountable because you put it out there, and therefore, like you say, you have to prove that you are doing what you say you're going to do. So this is, I think, some imagery from Six Senses Southern Dunes.
It is indeed.
So talk us through a little bit, for example, the concept and the early stages of a project like that. I mean, where do you even begin when it comes to embedding regenerative tourism principles into a development as stunning and spectacular as this?
Well, look, again, when we started off, it was what we tried to do is to create a destination that was really multi-experiential, and because I think today luxury and travel, it's less about the hotel and the quality of the service. Everybody expects good service, so yeah. let's take that as read. But what they want is our experiences. So, when we decided where we were going to develop, we wanted to create a diversity of different experiences. And so Southern Dunes is a desert resort. And as you can imagine, Red Sea covers an area of 28,000 square kilometers, which is the size of a small country. I usually use Belgium as a comparison. And so you can imagine we've got millions of places that we could find a location. We spent weeks, months looking for different locations to find a place for a unique desert destination. And we found this location called Southern Dunes, which is in the dunes, but it's also on a plateau, and it creates these dramatic views. And so that's what we decided we were going to develop.
Amazing.
And like everything else that we do, it's about working within nature, trying to embed the destination within nature. It's completely off-grid, just like everything else. It's currently operating with its own solar field, with its own net zero mobility. So we got green mobility, electric vehicles. So again, we practice what we preach. It's all about creating these unique experiences so that a guest can have multiple experiences in one location. So people say, "Oh, you're like the Maldives because we have islands," and I say, "No, we're not like the Maldives because we have so much more to offer. We can offer you that experience, of course, but you can also have a desert experience, a mountain experience. You can have all of that." All in one single destination. And then you've got the rich history and culture of Saudi Arabia and the warm hospitality of the Saudi people, which again, I don't think the Maldives or many of these other destinations can compete.
And from personal experience, I couldn't agree more. Not everyone in this room is obviously going to be able to build, develop, construct using fully regenerative tourism principles because we're all in different areas of the industry, different aspects, and what you do is very precise, very specific, building not for the mass market, not necessarily in that sense. But are there some universal principles? I mean, you've talked about experience, having an experience, but are there some other things that maybe everyone in the room today can be mindful of when it comes to any project that they might be turning their hand to?
Yeah, look, I think, as society, we need to change the way we build. I think we need to build better. I think you made that opening comment in the introduction. And not everybody can do what we're doing, but start from where you are. There are things that we can all collectively do. I think this is a case now of, people and companies taking collective responsibility for our future. And so eliminate single-use plastics. That's a good starting point. It's easy, right? It's, reducing energy consumption. It's to the extent that you can incorporate renewable energy, if you've got the opportunity to do so, do so. Even if it's just using it for daytime power. I mean, what we're doing is extreme by going 24/7. But renewable energy is the cheapest source of energy in the world today. I mean, solar specifically. And so incorporate some of that. Every little bit will help us towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, which takes us closer to trying to limit the temperature rise of the planet. So I think we can all adopt those principles, both in terms of how we develop, but also in our everyday lives.
Yeah, and is some of it like maybe Jerry and Jane were also alluding to earlier about looking for those more innovative solutions, those innovative technologies? I mean, this thing to do with reducing the temperature of the city by using certain building materials, or what we do with our grey water, or they're more traditional sustainable approaches, but you must be doing some really innovative things as well. I mean, do you have any little secrets you can share with us?
Well, look, we are. So, a lot of what we do in that innovation space focuses around the environment or climate. So, as I said, what we've done on the renewable energy front has never been, the technology exists, but has never been done before.
On that scale.
But also put together this way. Nobody has run 24/7 on renewables, using batteries, and it had its complexities and challenges. We're striving for net zero in our mobility. So we have a fleet, we have the largest electric bus fleet in the kingdom. We've built the largest EV charging network in the kingdom that is powered by renewable energy. So when our electric vehicles drive around the destination, they are genuinely net zero because the energy that goes in is renewable energy. We're looking at innovative ways to grow coral. So we've got floating nurseries that we've developed over the years and have had a 97% success rate. Wow. We've got laboratories where we're fragmenting corals, and it was like an accidental discovery by a scientist who was cultivating coral, and that was all going well, and whilst he was picking up a piece, he dropped it and it broke. And I was like, what do I do with this? Anyway, so he just put it back together and he just put it on the table, and he watched it, and as he watched it over time, it was growing much faster than the other corals. And so that led to this so-called microfragging technique, where you start to cut a piece of coral and you can accelerate the growth of coral. And you might ask, why are you doing that? Where, as you may recall, I said earlier, we have the most vibrant coral reef system in the world today, but we're not complacent. Coral reefs are under threat. So we're using technology to help protect ourselves, build resilience, and also share the knowledge that we derive from these exercises with the rest of the world. We're planting mangrove trees. We created mangrove nurseries to help propagate mangroves, because mangroves are great at protecting us from sea level rise. They create incredible habitats.
Yes.
We're looking at different mobility. So we're experimenting with hydrogen mobility, where we've got vehicles, cars, buses, and heavy transport vehicles to, again, look at different solutions to providing net zero, because EVs have limitations in terms of range, where hydrogen might offer alternative solutions. So we're using ourselves almost as a test bed, as a proof of concept. In fact, I had a meeting yesterday with the Civil Aviation Authority, looking at now trialing advanced air mobility, which is using electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft to get around the destination, so that we avoid using, fossil fuel driven.
More traditional mechanisms. Oh, I love an accidental scientific discovery. I mean, they're very exciting. But you also said something really pertinent, which was that you take the time and make the effort and commit to sharing your findings, your learnings. And I mean, I get the impression that collaboration and partnerships are a really important part of what you do as well. Not only choosing the partners to then run your destinations that you've developed, but maybe partners to think about how we do things differently. And is that something that we can maybe encourage our audience around today, that partnership and allyship is such an important part of doing things differently and doing things better?
No, without doubt. Look, I mean, we hold ourselves to very high values and beliefs, and when you choose a partner, you want to choose people that are like-minded. And So the partners that we've chosen to work with to date include partners like Aquapower, who share our values, share our commitment to the environment and renewable energy in that specific case. So we're not motivated by money, we're motivated by alignment of values and interests and beliefs, because I think that ultimately leads to successful outcomes, which is why we've had the success that we've had.
Yeah, and I think that comes across in bucket loads across all of these sessions in a forum like this, which is this alignment of purpose and vision. I mean, Vision 2030 can't get bigger as a vision, can it? And the belief that it can be achieved, and how we do that with the people and the pride that they have with an eye on the future. So eye on the future, John, you made a decision to come and do this incredible job. You saw the potential, you're a real visionary. You could have probably had all sorts of opportunities, but from where you are now, with an eye on the future, what's next?
What's next? The agenda keeps getting bigger. So, we've opened 3 resorts. We're going to open another 2 this year, another 19 resorts next year, but we're already on the drawing board with phase 2 of Red Sea and Amala. And I've got another dozen or so projects up and down the kingdom where we hope to continue to promote our approach to regenerative development across the entire spectrum, not just the higher end of the value chain or of the hospitality chain, but actually looking at more affordable mid-market options so that it's much more accessible to the wider population. I think that's certainly what's next. And as our new name, Red Sea Global, which we announced last year, gives us should signal our intentions that actually, what we're doing is so special and unique that we think we can export it more internationally, and looking at opportunities around the globe to promote the Saudi approach.
It's absolutely amazing. You are truly an advocate for building better. And I think, yes, the regenerative tourism principles are really, really inspiring. And I think we can all learn a lot. And even just in some of your approach, some of your attitude, some of your willingness to learn and be open to the possibility and open to the new. And I'd love to encourage everybody, while we have you here, thank you for sharing your expertise. But I guess if someone wants to grab you and make sure that they're leveraging that learning and that knowledge that you've so willingly and openly shared with us today, then I'd encourage everybody to continue having these conversations, because that is really what I believe will help us build better. But a closing word for the audience from you, John, if there's something you'd like resonating with people that they're thinking about, that they're considering as we go into our next sessions, what would that thing be?
Well, I think that for me the message to everybody is actions speak louder than words. Let's not just talk about it, let's do it. Let's build better, let's build differently. Because without that, I think the future doesn't look so bright. And then lastly, if I can add a second last word.
You may have to.
Red Sea is open for business. So you can book at St. Regis, you can book at Six Senses, you can book at Ritz-Carlton Reserve, and I encourage you to come and see and experience what Vision 2030 is all about. We are the first of the Giga projects to fully open our doors. We're now selling residential real estate as well, so that you can actually own a piece of it as well.
Well, we're very, very grateful for you sharing your thinking and your successes and your potential futures with us. So thank you so much. Everybody, a massive round of applause. Mr. John Pagano, please.